By the way, tonight we're at the Sweetser Farm in Cumberland Center. First apple tree was planted in this orchard in 1840. Now, I don't know if Samuel Sweetser knew the subject of our next story, but this guy's name was known all across the country because Neil Dow was the father of Prohibition, a movement that started in Maine and swept the entire country. Right on busy Congress Street sits the home of Neil Dow. It's seldom visited, as museums go, which is surprising because it has a great story to tell. Neil Dow started a movement that made drinking alcoholic beverages illegal. It was an idea that took hold in young Dow as he watched a neighbor stumble home drunk from Portland bars.
He would see him walking home at night from the pubs and saloons, waddling home and falling over himself, that he got the heart to do something about this.
The majority agreed with Dow, and on this desk in 1851, he wrote the Maine Act, which made the sale, distribution, and possession of alcohol illegal. Maine was the first teetotaling state, but we didn't go without a fight. In 1855, in what is now Monument Square, an angry crowd formed. They had heard that Mayor Dow had imported liquor for medicinal purposes, and they stormed City Hall looking for hooch that was locked in the city vault.
Neil Dow had to call out the militia and lined up the militia across Congress Street and read the Riot Act. The crowd did not disperse, and Neil Dow ordered the militia to open fire.
Maine historian Herb Adams told me how the militia wounded several and killed a man named John Robbins. It sparked a 19th century trial that rivaled O.J. Simpson's.
He was prosecuted by Nathan Clifford, a Democrat who was the former Attorney General of the United States of America, who lived in Portland and was within a few years a United States Supreme Court Justice. He was defended by William Pitt Fessenden, the great Republican United States Senator, who in a few years would cast the deciding vote against the impeachment of Andrew Johnson.
What were the charges?
Violating the liquor law.
How had he done that?
By bringing in medicinal liquors and storing it in the basement of City Hall under his own signature.
Well, what about the dead person? Was he?
Dow was never tried for that.
In fact, he was acquitted in the Great Show trial, but never stood for election again. He didn't need to. He was now the leader of a great cause, the cause of Prohibition in America. Even the Civil War could not stop him. Dow was appointed head of the 13th Maine, the so-called Sunday School Regiment, made up entirely of temperance men, most of whom, like Dow, fervently wanted to abolish slavery. And the 5'1" general was ordered to lead a foolhardy and reckless charge at Port Hudson, Louisiana. It was his first and only hour under combat.
He sent freed blacks ahead of him with boards and rails to bridge a ditch that were between them and the Confederates. Poor darkies, he said of them, and they, of course, fell like flies, throwing down boards to make the ditch bridgeable, and Dow, on horseback, led his men nearly up to the Confederate guns before he was wounded.
Dow was taken to Libby Prison, where he helped mastermind an escape. Eventually, he was exchanged for General Lee's own son. He came home with the sword of General Long of Louisiana, but his own sword did not return.
Dow's sword was taken when he was captured, and it is now, we have found out that it is now in a museum down in Georgia, I believe.
May Billingsley is the head of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. The WCTU helped temperance become the law of the land in 1919. Here in Maine, Prohibition had been the law for 68 years. In fact, when the Cumberland County Courthouse was built in 1911, the job of liquor deputy was carved in stone. We thought Prohibition would always be around.
In those days, liquor deputies in Maine were called Sturgismen, in honor of the man who put the law through in the Maine legislature. If you were a Sturgisman, you were a liquor cop, meaning that you were almost the thought police. You could break into a person's home without a warrant if you suspected them of violating the law, confiscate anything they had if you felt it was useful to prove your case, throw you in jail for months with no charge at all.
Herb showed me where the liquor cops stored the confiscated hooch in the basement of the courthouse. It was a practice that went on until 1933, and like Neil Dow, Prohibition was something you either loved or didn't.
Long after the Civil War, when Dow was an old gray man, he was approached on the sidewalk by a complete stranger who said, "General, I was damn glad yesterday to hear that you were dead. I'm damn sorry to see today that you are alive." General Dow just loved that. Loved it.
Neil Dow's Congress Street home is headquarters for the WCTU, a group which tries to lessen social problems by educating people on the harmful effects of alcohol. Neil Dow would be darned glad of that. He rests in peace in Portland's Evergreen Cemetery, where he was laid to rest after fighting the good fight for 93 years. The Maine law was passed by our legislature on June 2nd, 1851, exactly 150 years ago.